welcome, everyone. This is your host, Vance, live from Kopi Events. That's right. The month is a very special month, the month of May, which is specially dedicated to Mental Health Awareness Month. We have some fabulous speakers who just came on board and we spoke. We got Yana, we got Dr. Ravi, we got Dr. Harinder. And today I have a special guest all the way from Texas. And right now she's in Singapore. She is Shyla Colley. She's a Singaporean psychotherapist based in Dallas, Texas, and she's the founder and senior psychotherapist at Therapy Rocks. So she's going to join us for a great discussion. Hi, Shyla.
Hello. Hi, Vance. How are you?
I am good. How are you, Shyla?
I'm good. I'm glad to be back in Singapore.
That's right. I remember, if my memory didn't fail me, last year you actually was in Texas when we do our first live show.
Yes, we did it online and I was in Texas. Yes.
Yes, and now you're in Singapore. How is Singapore treating
Yes.
you? Or how are you treating Singapore?
Oh, very well. I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to get back to the food and everything
Right.
and meet my friends.
Okay.
Yeah, and I have family here. Yeah.
Thank you, Shaila, for joining us for the second year. I remember last year as well. Discussion
Mhm.
was great. We talked a lot of interventions as well. And today, our topic, let's dive straight to the topic. Of course, it's
Let's
called the
dive in.
normalizing therapy.
Mhm.
Before we even want to go in, Shaila, I mean, of course, there's a lot of viewers who are just joining us right now.
Mhm.
It would be great if you can just do a short introduction of yourself.
Okay, I'm a Singaporean. I have worked in the school system here for many years, 25 years as a biology teacher in a secondary school, 7 years as a school counselor. So I'm very familiar with young people, teenagers, and the kind of issues they face. And eventually, I left MOE to
Hmm.
do my master's in social
Okay.
science. And I started my own private practice, which is now six years old. It's
Okay.
called Therapy Rocks.
Hmm.
And it's largely an online practice. I see a lot of Singaporeans as well as Australians and Americans. So, so even with COVID, I mean, the work went on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is quite sad, but of course, with the pre-COVID, and people were already stressed up because of
Mhm.
workloads. Especially, we have some friends in the sales lines or even the financial sectors. They
Mhm.
were pretty much stressed, right? With COVID, I think it's given them more additional pressure as well.
Yes.
Today's topic, normalizing therapy. Maybe we want to talk a little bit of that first before we jump into our hot burning questions that lined up for our viewers.
Okay. Yes. The topic is a good one because
Yeah.
there's still a lot of stigma attached to psychotherapy, to counseling, and it's the cost of you know maintaining the stigma
Mhm.
and not giving young people especially a good experience
Yeah.
with counseling and psychotherapy. The cost of that is very, very serious. I mean, if you look at the rate of suicide
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
depression among the young, especially, it all goes to show that this kind of stigmatization is not very helpful. Young
Mhm.
people have very little life experience, to cope with issues and problems, and they don't bounce back as quickly as an adult would.
Mhm.
So, so that's why it's important to normalize psychotherapy and normalize counseling. And we are very lucky here in Singapore because every school has a school counselor. I
Mm.
mean, that's a really a privilege. And this that kind of accessibility is not common in other countries. Every school has a counselor, and
Yeah.
sometimes they have up to three school counselors depending on the school population. And yet, you know, why isn't a child, say, of uh, 12 or 13 years old, why isn't a child given an experience of a good therapy session?
Mhm.
You know, the attitude is that you got to get really, you got to be in a really bad place before you get to see a therapist. But why not make it a normal experience for a child to know what a therapy session looks like? Maybe have a
Mm.
mock session for a classroom so that students understand what happens during therapy. They don't go away with this kind of notions that are passed on from parents and all, that therapy is only for the bad kids or
Mhm,
kids
mhm.
who are unable to cope. There's so much shame attached to getting help. So this is why this topic is important. It's
Thank you,
important for
Shyla.
teachers to know, it's important for parents to understand, it's important for the general population to understand that, going to see a therapist should
Mhm.
be as normal as going to see your doctor when you're sick.
So how then, Shaila, because we are going to go a little bit more deeper right now, how do you decide that you're in need of a therapy? Because right now, to be very honest, if someone who goes see a psychologist or psychotherapist, there's a big label. People put a big stigma onto them. Oh, you must be gone crazy. Or help it seems to be a big weakness in a lot of people. It doesn't show that you're strong enough to go for that. That help. When you approach help, you're actually making yourself to become much more stronger. But is it because of the stigma that people are worried? Is that could be the reason, Shaila?
Yeah, this stigma has its power, I guess, but then, just simply means that we have to go past that, overcome that, and re-educate ourselves, and find out what therapy really is what it's about, what's the power of psychology, applied psychology in your daily life. Are you going to deny yourself this whole body of science just because of what your parents told you or what a few people tell you? You just need to get past that, because the value of psychology is immense. A child who is, say, 12, if a child of 12 has a very good experience in therapy, he's going to remember that. And when he faces, hurdles in the future, because a child of 12 has seen nothing yet. I mean, wait till he
Hmm.
becomes an adult and he has to cope with financial anxiety, for instance, his first breakup, for instance. you know at least, he has had that experience of a good session and knows what to do. Because in the void of that, if you don't have that, what does a teenager, for example, know? I mean, what to do? I mean, they're in a dark place. They have shame about the way they feel, so they keep quiet, they self
Hmm.
isolate, they are their head is full of dark thoughts. There's so few options for young people if they're not exposed to what therapy is. So
Right.
what happens? Suicide ideation, you know or if there's anger involved, then you see what's happening in the US. You not only hurt yourself, you hurt other people. You look at the shootings that happen, the
Yeah.
mass shootings. So actually, we don't really have much of a choice. We need to address this head on. The cost of not knowing what therapy is, the cost of succumbing to shame is just
Mm.
too high.
Shaila, just a personal question, right? If someone is not feeling well, they see a doctor, right? If they're having a stomach cramps, probably you want to see a doctor. If your muscles are ache, probably you want to see a
Yeah.
physiotherapist. But
Yes.
how can we identify? I know we are jumping a little bit faster, but before we go into the question, how do one decides in need of therapy, if especially parents making the decision for their children, if they see certain behaviors, or if your child is isolating, or giving excuses when it comes to morning, preventing from school. But apart from that, is there any signs and symptoms that one can look for, especially parents, right?
Yes.
That they can look for.
Definitely. There's a cluster of traits, the cluster of observations that are red flags. If you see your teenager, um, you know, on social media a lot and
Mhm.
sharing thoughts, or expressing dark thoughts, um, constantly talking about having no solutions to his problems and feeling shame about talking about his issues. So the shame is followed by self isolation. So you see school refusal, poor attendance in school. The child is not interacting in with his friends. Um, that is a person who's very vulnerable, you know.
Mm.
Um, and it, good teachers and good counselors can pick them out very quickly in a school scenario. I mean, the hopelessness, the sense of hopelessness is very profound with these kids. They are usually loners. Nobody wants to befriend them. So those are red flags. Such a child should be pulled aside for further work with them. If there's a
Mhm.
school therapist, and school therapist has to know, a school counselor needs to know how to get to them, to talk to them, and let the parents know or share with the parents what's going on at home.
Mhm.
You know, he's having all these symptoms. Sometimes children are the symptom bearers of problems at home. So when you contact their parents and you start talking to them, you realize what's going on. Maybe one of them has lost a job, or perhaps one of them has suddenly fallen very ill. I mean, a debilitating illness like cancer. The child is going through a lot. So it's important for people in the front line, like teachers, to pick out these kids
Mhm.
because they spend a lot of time in school. And if they don't, then why are they absent from school? Those are those are the signs that something is wrong. All right. So for school going children, I mean in secondary school and college, I mean it's quite easy to pick out these kids,
Yeah.
right? But how wonderful it will be that if the school has a program that just doesn't do this alone, but gives every child an opportunity to see the counselor. All right.
Right.
First of all, okay, to give you an idea that may work is the counselor can do a mock therapy session, for instance, in front
Mhm.
of a
Mhm.
classroom,
Right.
and then they can have an interactive lesson on what the therapist is trying to do with the student. So, and it can entertain questions from the students. Make it normalized to so they know what goes on when their friend goes for counseling. You know what I mean? So if every
Yeah.
child knows what happens, all right, then every child feels comfortable about walking in to a counselor's room and just talking about his issues. He doesn't need to be referred by a parent or a teacher. It'll be good if we can get to that point. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Shyla, I mean, just to add on to that, especially a parent, me as a parent, many of them, well, our audience right now can
Mm-hmm,
be a parent.
mm-hmm,
Sometimes it's just a worrying that, if I'm going to bring my child to see a psychotherapist or psychologist, people may label my child, with certain harsh words, like, which I really don't wish to say that, but, those words like crazy, mad, you have certain, sickness or whatever, is it could be the reasons why parents are also could be under stress as well by not bringing their child to, seek professionals.
Well, the process itself is confidential. I mean, what is discussed between the therapist and the parent and the child is confidential. So, but if others, little kids especially, can be pretty cruel. I mean, but that's where stigma starts, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if you can go past all of that and explain to your own child that you know um, it's quite normal to seek help like this, for a therapist to explore what's going on in your mind
Mhm.
and to look at the way you think and help you think in terms that are more helpful and healthier. you know Try and change your child first, and get them to see the benefit of therapy. You can't do too much, but you yourself must believe in it because it's so important for your child. It's more important than the stigma. Can you
But
see my point?
I mean, of course, in the Asian context, do you think that parents are ready to bring their kids? I mean, as a psychotherapist, I mean, you probably have seen. Is it something that they really wait till the end when things go a little wilder and then they make the decision? Then they seek up. Do you think that will help, or is it better
No.
to do some interventions?
With young children, I believe in early intervention, especially for anxiety, because untreated anxiety, for instance, can lead to depression,
Hmm.
and when you wait too long, it becomes more difficult and you have more issues to deal with. There are a number of things that can happen if you don't treat anxiety, which is very common with children in secondary school, especially because there's so many demands on them
Hmm.
academically and all of that.
Yeah.
So uh, it really doesn't matter if the child has a diagnosis or whether it's subclinical. Anxiety is anxiety.
Hmm.
It can be treated straight away without a diagnosis. And what happens is then you can prevent depression from setting in because they usually go hand in hand. There's a feeling of hopelessness that comes with anxiety, and there's also a feeling of shame. Why am I different? Why am I scared?
Hmm.
What I mean?
Yeah.
But anxiety is so common. Who amongst your audience can say they've never felt it?
Hmm.
As an adult, we feel anxious, we have financial anxiety, and we have anxiety about our health. You know, why is anxiety so unrelatable? I mean, young children feel anxiety when they are put into new situations like going to a new school, the
Hmm.
transition from secondary school to, sorry, from primary school to secondary school, from kindergarten to, these are life transitions that
Right.
you got to see it from the point of view of the child. It's frightening. It's it can, if you don't treat it, you can have physical symptoms. It can escalate to a panic attack, and all these things can be avoided because anxiety is so treatable,
Right. Shala,
so
just going to hold you
treatable.
for a while here. Sorry.
Mhm.
We have one viewer from the audience itself has asked how to know if our child has anxiety.
Oh, usually it presents as with little children. I mean, I have presented it like that when I was a kid myself. Um, you you may you may not want to go to school.
Right.
It's not an exciting place to be at, and there's something in school that frightens you. It could be a teacher, it could be a bully,
Right.
and it could be the shame that is attached to comparisons and competition. Right, a teacher unwittingly, or maybe a very unenlightened teacher
Okay.
may may call somebody stupid, or or even the even the simple act of praising one child in the
Hmm.
classroom
Hmm.
can make other children feel inadequate.
Hmm.
This is a lesser known thing, right? So when this is going on in the classroom, a child may not want to go to school, and that is actually an avoidance mechanism because the child doesn't want to feel anxious. The triggers are there in school. It makes them feel bad. It gives them a stomach ache.
Yeah. Yeah.
That kind of thing. Many of them complain of stomach aches, right?
Yeah.
So they will avoid that situation by staying away from school.
Mhm.
So those are the signs. So it'll be good if the parent can actually go to school and find out what's going on in the classroom. Why is this child so frightened and anxious?
Right. Shaila, especially in the Singapore, we do have cases, but of course, I don't have the stats right now.
Mm,
That leads to commit suicides. Especially below the age of 20.
mhm,
Some of these kids or teenagers probably they might be in a a very tremendous situation. Maybe it's a love,
A
breakages of
romantic
love,
breakup.
yeah, romantic breakout. The
Mm-hmm.
heart is just gonna crack there.
Mm-hmm.
Some are just hooked onto social media, and they have been exposed to a lot of stuff. And in the past, we also heard that there are certain in social media that ask you to do crazy stuff and crazy things. Get you
Mm-hmm.
addicted to it. And how can one can prevent from that? Because we can't stop our kids, right? I mean, you can't be monitoring them. Parents are busy as well. They go in the morning, they come at night. But work life balance is there, but then in the same time they go to monitor their kids. So could we say that we are heading towards a disaster? Because that something must be done. I know schools got counselors as well. But even though kids are under stress because of educations, because of peer pressures, comparisons that we talked about, do you think then I really think that all children should have therapy as well, just to, like what you say, right? To go
Mm-hmm.
through and to check, make sure that they're on the right track.
Mm, actually, the a single experience of therapy is simply to expose them to what can happen, how much their life can improve with a session of therapy, for instance. So they know what they are walking into. As for social media, there's nothing we can do. I mean, it's there. The access to social media, um, how much exposure they have to it, and all that. Who takes charge of these kids? It's the parents, isn't it? So
Right.
um, how stringent are they? How much do they talk to their children about these things? Do they have regular conversations about what is how to be safe on social media? Do do the kids talk to them? Are the channels of communication open? Because you cannot put them in prison, and put them away from social media. It's going to be always there. The danger is always there.
Hmm.
But what we need is for more conversations between parents and their children, so that they like when you have an event that happens,
Hmm.
like a tragedy that occurs, and it's reported in the papers. How often do parents sit down and talk to their children about it, and so that they understand that this is not what they want for their children. And
Right.
social media has its dangers, and has it's you're going into dangerous places. And how do you know uh, how to keep yourself safe? So we can't save the whole world, and we cannot put these kids into prevent them from accessing social media. I mean, they use social media for learning as well. you
Right.
know but the only way to get them to be sensible about it is to talk to them, and not just leave it to the school, because a teacher will have has so many kids to look out for. But parents, you have what, 1 to 4 kids to look out for? Even after a hard day's work, don't you think you should be chatting with them to find out what's going on?
Hmm.
You know, Start the conversation. I mean, talk about important stuff with your parents. Don't break the connection with them. The connection is what we deem most important. Communication, not so, but connection. Connection means your child feels comfortable talking to you about everything under the sun. All right, because you have built your relationship with them like that. Okay. Now, a special point about romantic relationships,
Okay.
especially with the young. All right, this is actually a function of their age. A young person experiencing a romantic breakup compared to an older person, I mean, who has had many rounds of relationships and probably um, a lot of life experience behind them, to know that a breakup is not the end of the world, right? When a young person experiences their first breakup, it looks very, very different. I see a lot of young people in that stage. I mean, even up to the age of 21 is still feels like I'm seeing the same thing, right? It's traumatic. The pain is intense, especially when it's the first breakup, the first
Yeah.
relationship
The first
breakup.
love. The first
Yes,
love.
the first love. Um, you need to have a lot of empathy for
True.
people in that position because their pain is very intense and palpable,
Mm.
and and it feels like a catastrophe. It feels like the end of the world. They can't sleep, they can't eat, they find the pain unbearable. It's almost physical, and very often when they don't have access to therapy, immediate access to therapy, their their thoughts will turn dark. Okay,
Right.
sometimes depending on their sense of self-worth, I mean, uh, there is shame that is attached to the whole experience because they feel rejected, that depending on who broke up with whom, you know. So the person on the receiving end will feel a lot of shame,
Yeah.
right, if they come from a place of low self-worth. Okay, it kind of feeds their sense of low self-worth, so they feel rejected. Now, this is a person who is very vulnerable,
Right.
right? Yeah, because they make it all about themselves. They see themselves as a loser, when in actual fact, I mean, we all adults know, adults with a greater life experience in many rounds of romantic relationships know that there can be a million reasons why someone broke up with you. It doesn't
So we have
always have to be about you.
sorry, Shala. We have another question here right now. I think this is the right time to bring that in because I think
Sure.
she just asked us what to do if children don't open up to their parents. If we talk to children, they said nothing. So probably, a mom is asking the child, and the child just keep quiet and keep looking at the phone. As you know, as a growing child or teenager, they have some kind of their own ways and means of operating, and even sometimes parents are getting huge challenges as well, even as young as 10 years old or even lower than that as well, I guess. So that is a part of growing of them, but that sounds like a little bit of stubbornness. But what is your take on this?
Well, for that question, I would actually look at the parents of very young children. I mean, if you've had a history of being alarmed and angry when your child tells you something, and shock, these are responses that don't sit well on young children and uh, and teenagers, because they're feeling all of these things, but they also, don't forget, they also love their parents and love their mother and father and don't want to shock them or frighten
Mm,
them. So,
yeah.
when I see teenagers that are like 15 and 16 years old, and I ask them questions like, does your mother know what you just told me? Does your father know just what you just told me? And often the response I get is, no, I don't want to worry them. You know, I know my mom will worry.
Hmm.
Uh, and I don't want to bother them and that kind of thing. That's the kind of response I get. And I'll have to speak to them because I can't break my trust with them. I have to persuade them that this issue is so important that we need to discuss this as a family, you know. And I have to work harder at convincing the child that this is something that can be shared with your parents. Your parents are not going to bite your head off, you know. So the question is, how do you build your connection with your children? I mean, how have you responded in the past? Have you been judgmental? You know, have you um, have you listened to them deeply without interruption, with a lot of empathy? Empathy looks like this. Empathy looks like getting into the hole with your child, experiencing everything exactly the way the child experiences it. That is true empathy. Anything less is probably sympathy, or and if
Right.
that kind of thing. I mean, empathy is deep listening, and that can be taught. I do have workshops to teach family members how to listen deeply to their teenagers or to their young children. It's a very, very important skill. It shouldn't remain in the domain of counselors and psychotherapists. Ev- It's like CPR.
Okay.
Everybody in a family should know how to do
To
deep
perform.
listening. Yes. So, deep listening is about genuine empathy. You get into the dark hole with your child and try to see the world through their eyes.
Well said, Shyla. We are going to go into the next question right now. So we talked about all about this therapy right now. So some parents will be just wondering what is therapy is all about. What
Mhm,
the psychotherapist is going to do or psychology? Because I do know a parent which
mhm,
I have talked to and say that weekly she brings a son to the psychologist, right?
mhm,
And then one of his friend found out that he's visiting a psychologist every week, and then he
mhm.
started to spread around, and then people making fun of him. So that could be a little bit stress on the parent as well, because they always try to keep it p and c. But in the therapy itself, what does it look like?
Oh, what does good therapy look like? Is it?
That's right.
Is
Yeah.
that the question you're
Yeah.
asking? Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. My specialty is CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, right? So we work largely with a person's thinking. How is the person thinking? How is the person viewing his world? What perspectives does he have? And so we focus a lot on and try and pick out negative automatic thoughts the person has, and core beliefs that are generally negative about themselves and about the world they live in. Okay, so working with somebody's thoughts is a large part of what I do in my work. The other aspect of it is looking at behaviors. Um, a getting at it from the angle of behaviors is the fastest way to bring relief to somebody in emotional pain. So, for instance, someone who is depressed,
Mm-hmm.
okay, someone
Right.
who's depressed has very low energy, all right, they're often sleeping. They don't want to face the world. They don't want to go to school. They don't want to go to work. This is the profile of someone who is very depressed. So the first thing you can change, it will feel very counterintuitive for the person. So sometimes you need the help of a family member to execute this behavioral change. Help them to get up, brush your teeth, take a shower. All right, help them to do that. Raise the energy level a little bit, and then go for a walk. Right, what this does is, this is brain science, this is neuroscience. It does wonders for the brain. I mean, your feel good hormones will start to spike, and you feel a little better. Some of them have to be forced to do this, but it's a good start. And then eventually, when they feel better, they don't need anybody's help. They know that, if I get up and go for a walk, I'll feel better for a while. This is a behavioral change. And a
Right.
CBT specialist will be working on that. Okay, so other behavioral changes that you can implement, you can encourage the client to implement meditation. Meditation also changes your brain. Mindfulness meditation, keeping all your senses alive and receptive. It's a sensory experience. It's not necessarily a spiritual or religious experience. It's not that kind of meditation, but something that is mindful is about feeling your world through your five senses, feeling alive, feeling grateful for the body you have and your sense organs. So you build this part. I call this your stress, anti-stress toolbox. This needs
Okay.
to be in the background all the time. You need to build on this all the time. Okay, even at times when you don't experience depression, you need to work on this. You need to do activities that make you feel good. Art, for instance, music. Don't just be a consumer of music, or a consumer of art, but actually get actively engaged in it. You know, um, make it an all-consuming thing. Like for instance, for myself, my
All right.
therapy is gardening, and and it's all consuming for me. I mean, I moved from Singapore to the US, and I had to learn a whole lot of different things about plants, about the four seasons, and there was so much to learn, but I love learning, and it is all consuming for me. Every new plant I got, I needed to learn about it. So that's the kind of activities and hobbies you need to start nurturing. And it's good to start with your children, when they are young.
So how about dancing, Shyla? Do you think dancing can be also one of the
Dancing is
therapy?
great. Dancing is fantastic.
Yeah,
You know why? Dancing just does wonders to your endocrine system,
there you go.
and spinning, dancing, trampoline work. These are great for your hormonal mechanisms.
There you
They
go.
are great things to do. Exercise, but when you do it consciously, in the sense that it's not just for fitness or looking good, but it's good for your mind and good for your soul. So anchor the experience as more than just about looks and fitness.
All right, Shyla. So I'm going to give you a secret right now. So before show starts from Kopi events, the almost coming to the show time, I'll be doing some dancing at the background with some music. Uh,
I would love to see that.
I'm sure viewers would love to do that because I love dancing, right?
Hmm.
It's basically just increases your dopamine, the serotonin, your oxytocin, and the best
Yes,
part of it is my
all the
endorphins.
feel good hormones, the whole
Oh
cocktail of
yeah,
feel good hormones.
that's
Yes.
right. But some people are just shy, because they're shying about. I mean, there's a big thing in our society right now. What will other people would think of me, or the judgment and the comments, and so people are always worried. People are very reserved. People are very rigid. They're not moving. They're not expressing. Like what you mentioned, right? These are all a very important therapy, and I say that these are just like interventions that you do things before a major like
Yes.
event may happen to you, right?
Hmm. Yeah. I visualize it as like a hammock. You build your hammock, get
Uh,
it ready, and so when you hit a wall with your issues and problems, and you know you always can fall back on that hammock. Yeah, I sometimes get clients tell me, "Oh, I'm going through this anxiety. I try to meditate." That's not when you try to
yeah.
learn how to meditate. You can't learn how to meditate when you are in a high state of anxiety. You
Um,
can't. But you need to practice it when all is well and good. Then you can access that as a behavioral strategy more easily. You know what I mean? You don't do it for the first time when you run into a problem. You do it as a daily practice.
Shaila, I have just received a message. Probably I'm
Hmm.
not going to mention the name here. I'm just going to use as what shall I use? Okay, shall I just use C? All right,
Okay,
C.
C. All right.
All
What does
right.
C
So
want
I'm
to
not going to
know?
mention a name here. Right. So C is watching
Okay.
here. This is going to be interesting. Wants to
Uh-huh.
know, how do you deal with patients with
Hmm.
trauma background? Is CBT therapy enough to overcome their trauma?
Uh, Not really. CBT doesn't necessarily go back into the history of childhood trauma, but there are other therapies you can use that are more Jungian, and like for instance shadow work. Sometimes the trauma, if you're talking about child, the trauma can be so profound that they don't remember, and they don't have a memory of it, and they've suppressed all memory of it. So um, they need more intensive kind of therapy that involves um, you know more, I call it shadow work, where you go into a child's inner state, the inner child, where the
Yeah.
child has become hurt, and try to um, distill and pull out the memory first, and together. Well, the thing is, there are, you might not remember the incident or the series of incidents, but it's buried somewhere in you.
Right.
So there are techniques to extract the the memory through sensations in the body, and you pull out the
Right.
sensations first, and then it's like a string. You pull out the sensations, and that is followed by some memory, sometimes vague, and then you work on it. It takes several sessions, and it might um it might take many sessions because it's lying somewhere in the unconscious.
Right.
That's deep, deep therapy.
Thank you,
Yes.
Shyla. So
But
viewers were
have I
watching.
done it? Have I done it with
Yeah.
clients? Yes, I have.
Okay.
And I'd rather speak to the person privately on how that
Okay.
is done. Yeah.
So see, you are watching this right now, so you know what to do. Do not worry, because later I'm giving you certain details of Shyla, so you can actually contact her if you want to. I just received another message as well from the comment section. Thank you, Nirgunavadi. She said that social media can have a massive impact on the mental health of teenagers as well. And she said that it can damage their performance in other areas. How to overcome this issue among teenagers? Because it seems like teenagers, we've been a teenager, but I don't think so. I was giving these kind of issues to my parents because probably it's a different kind of problems.
Mm-hmm.
But nowadays, teenagers with this social media, I think they can travel all around the world. They can get all kind of information. Um, and I think the parents are having a huge challenge here as we speak.
Yeah, I know it's a challenge, but have you laid the groundwork for conversation with your kids? Because there's not really nothing you can do about what's out there. You can't do anything about what's out there. There's danger everywhere. Okay? But what you can teach your child is how to think about something, you know? So have open, healthy conversations with your children about things that bother you. What else can you do? I mean, that's the best thing you can do.
Right. Thank you for that message, Nirguramadi. A
In
big
other
time
words,
follower.
Vance,
Yeah.
make your voice, make the parents' voice louder than all these faceless chitter chatter that goes
Right.
on social
Right.
media. You know,
Yeah. I
give
mean,
them alternative perspectives on things.
yeah, but
Shh.
Chala, I'm going to pose a difficult point here. Let's see if it's easy for you or difficult, all right? But parents also going through a huge, humongous stress. It's another part of that, right? Daily pressures from work, working extra hours, financial issues that we can talk about. And now by the time they come back home, they are totally exhausted, and they are just having a hard time. So I think we are living in this period of time where parents as well also going through a humongous kind of stress as well. So how could they? Do you
Yes.
think? I know it's not fair. I mean, then we should be asking them why you have a child, but they are also
No.
need they also need help.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
It's like the mask that drops off in the airplane.
yeah,
You use it on yourself first before you help your
yeah.
child.
We have true. Yeah,
So maybe one thing you could do is get some get some help there, get some counseling for yourself first, so that you can know your strengths, because everybody has strengths. I mean, it seems like everybody's stressed out, but they're still standing on their own 2 feet. Sometimes I have parents like these turn up at therapy, and they go through a massive amount of issues and stress, and I reflect back to them that they're still standing on 2 legs. They have
yeah,
strengths, and this is something a therapist can do for people. I mean, like my practice, Therapy
right.
Rocks is a strengths based um, practice. That means when a client comes in, no matter how bad a situation they are in, I can find ways to give them feedback that they have strengths, they have the capacity to change, they have the capacity to try new behaviors. or look at things from a different perspective. They have all these capacities, and that gives them hope. You know, it's therapy is no more like, those old Woody Allen movies where somebody lies on a couch, and a therapist sitting on a chair with his
Yeah,
notebook, and
yeah,
he's
and
rambling
then
away,
jotting it down. That's
and
right.
then yeah, and then the therapist asks some inane question like, so how does that make you feel, that kind of thing. I mean, it's no more like that. Good therapy is very collaborative. There's a lot of back and forth chatting. There's a
Hmm.
lot of validation of somebody else's feelings, a client's feelings, and uh, you allow them to express their feelings. You're not afraid of their feelings. Teach them not to be afraid of their own feelings. Discharge them in a healthy way, so they feel better. And
Right.
that's what good therapy looks like. Good therapy is anchored in a good relationship between the client and the therapist, and the therapist's belief in the client. Okay, that the client has all these capacities despite all his problems, simply because despite everything that he or she is going through, she's still there. She's looking after her kids, she's cooking for her kids, she's bringing kids to school. These are strengths.
Nice.
Yeah.
Then, Shala, sorry, then probably what I want to ask you is, how is therapy with a professional psychotherapist different from just talking to a friend?
Oh,
You know,
that's
I
a
may
very
have a
good
very good
question.
friend. Yeah, I may have a very good friend, and then I'll be just talking to him, and I'm feeling okay.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe your issues and problems are not that serious.
Okay,
So probably all you needed was for somebody to be there while you are
right.
venting, and
Okay,
they are doing active listening, which is a skill that many of us know how to do. Right.
right, right.
So active listening sometimes is good enough. Even venting, if a friend just wants you to be sitting there, and she or he just wants to vent and discharge uncomfortable feelings like anger and all that, and all he needed was to get that out of his system, then you have done the job. You've satisfied him. But is that enough? That's the question. Because the difference between a therapist and a friend is this: a therapist has years and years and years of training and many years of experience
Mm,
seeing people in the exact same situation as you. You take a doctor, for instance. A doctor sees many, many cases of diabetes or many, many cases of asthma. Don't you
right.
think he's going to be very good at it?
Of course, you definitely be
Yes,
great at
because
it.
he can see it coming from a mile away, right? What to do
Yeah.
about it is very simple for him. It's the same with the psychotherapist. We have seen many, 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 many cases of depression and anxiety. So, and we have the training, we have the therapies and we know how to use the different therapies that we have learned. I mean, I have a specialty in CBT as well as transactional analysis. TA is
Yeah.
very good for communication and connection. Okay, I won't go into what it's all about. You can go on my website and find out more about TA. It's a very powerful therapy, all right?
Okay.
Especially in conversations between a parent and a teenager, or between a boss and his employee, all right? TA comes in useful for that kind of things. And so, mm, yeah, so that's the kind of knowledge that a therapist has. How does it compare to talking to a friend? All right. And friends, of course, can give you comfort, like what you did for your friend. Okay,
Yeah.
you're obviously capable of genuine empathy and deep listening, and that was enough. Okay, but be careful when you give advice, because that's where you run into a problem again. Because when you ask a friend for an advice on a situation you are facing, okay, that advice is going to come to you through that person's
Experience.
filters. Yes.
Right.
So if you're talking to somebody who say, let me give you an example. If
Sure.
you're talking if you're talking to somebody who has had many bad experiences with men, okay, romantic relationships, okay, to the point that she's become a man hater, okay. Go to that person and ask them about dating and your breakups and all that, and they give you a earful about how men are all untrustworthy and
Oh,
cannot, that kind of thing.
so that's based on their
They
experience,
see
right?
this,
Based on
yes,
their
they,
experience,
based on their own personal
yeah.
experience,
Yeah.
based on their own cultural background,
Okay.
family background, sometimes religious background. So they have agendas, and the advice they're giving you is coming through a filter, okay, which may not be your situation at all. You come from a different family. You have a uniqueness that is very, very, you're not that person. So should you be taking the advice of that person even though they are a close friend? There's so many differences between you and her or him. So you see, this is something that you need to understand. Friends can provide comfort, all right, but when it comes to advice, they're going to give it to you through the lens of their own experience, their own values, their own judgments, their own biases. And and is that going to be good advice? You tell me.
Yeah. Can
Because you
understand.
want to live your life based on your desires, your aspirations, not theirs. It should be based on your uniqueness, what you want for yourself.
Right.
Okay.
All right, Shala. Then we're going to go into the stigma of therapy, and I mean, we talked about this earlier as well. But
Hmm.
do you
There's
see that very often? I mean, especially right. I mean, I'm not sure about a lot of the viewers here right now, but some might have some reservations on their part. They might feel a bit shy approaching for help that we talked about earlier.
well, what is more important, the health and well-being of your child or your shyness? It's as simple as that. You got to weigh the options. What's more important to you?
Right.
Hmm.
All right, Shala. I have another viewer here just asked us, how much does this therapy cost and what to consider when looking for a therapist?
Okay, I think we've come to the last question, right, about
Yeah, that's right.
affordability. Yes,
That's right.
I think in Singapore we're quite lucky. There's a whole range of therapies. I mean, a whole range of services offered, right? Some are government funded and all that.
Yeah.
So, for young children, I mean, from primary school to all the way up to junior college, you have access to a school counselor. It's absolutely free as far as I know.
Hmm.
So why not take advantage of that?
Right.
So um, sometimes there is a stigma attached to that. Oh, the teachers will know, this other students will know, and all that. But you got to weigh
Hmm.
the options. What is more important? You got to make a decision, because you can't change the world. You can't change people's attitudes to therapy. You can't do that. But you can make decisions that are wise for your own child.
Right. Shala, I mean, when we talk about mental health, I mean, this topic can just go for days and days and days. I mean, it's very great to, if you have covered a couple of things here that we talked about, but for parents out there, there's one advice that you want to give to them. I mean, there's some children who are very vulnerable. They go
Mhm.
into depression very quickly without parents monitoring them because of the situation that may happen in their school or even when they're going out with their friends. That one advice that you want to give to parents.
My one advice would
Yeah.
be to, at all costs, keep the connection with your child.
Right.
Don't do battle with your child. Don't pick your battles. I mean, some battles are not worth fighting if it means that you break your connection to your child.
Right.
So have more conversations with your child. That's so important, because that's your only defense, I mean, against the outside world.
Thank you, Shyla. I'm going to take last one more question and then we are coming to the end of the show. Vanessa Jacqueline De Cruz questions. I've been fighting my depression and anxiety via medication. So far, it is working. Do you think I will eventually need to see a psychiatrist?
Did I read that correct? Is it meditation or medication?
Medicate, put them
Meditation,
meditation. Yeah, meditation. So
I
probably with
think.
medication, I guess. I'm sorry,
Um,
Vanessa.
Vanessa, is it meditation or medication?
Vanessa, can you correct that for us? Is that a meditation or medication? Right.
Um,
So, oh, meditation. Yeah,
med-
sorry, it's not medication. Meditation.
Now it's mediation, actually.
Mediation. Yeah, yeah. Oh, there's a few things there. All right. Yeah.
Meditation. Okay,
Yeah.
meditation. Okay, you are
Wow.
applying meditation.
Meditation.
You are practicing meditation to fight depression and anxiety, and you have found
Yeah.
some success with it. Good. All right. These are behavioral interventions, and so far it is working. Well
Yeah.
done, Vanessa. Do you think I will eventually need to see a psychiatrist? Um, are you on medication? Because a psychiatrist is a medical practitioner, and they whether they give you psychotherapy depends on their training background, and what they give you is actually medication. Medication. They can
Medication.
give you medication. They're the only mental health professional, between
Can prescribe.
psychologists,
Yeah.
psychotherapists, and psychiatrists. They're the only ones who can prescribe medication. Okay,
Right.
psychotherapists and psychologists cannot prescribe medication.
Medication.
Okay, so do you eventually need to see a psychiatrist if everything is well and you feel good and you can cope with things? Um, you don't need to see a psychiatrist. You know, if you feel that your your mind, you want to explore what's going on in your mind, then you would see a psychotherapist. Okay. Um, Okay, now you tell me that it's medication that you're on and that you have side effects. Oh,
Yeah.
mm, okay. Then you should
Yeah.
go back to your psychiatrist and talk about
That's
it.
right.
He may have to change the dosage and all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah.
Vanessa, for the
But
question.
you could benefit more from both uh, medication as
Medication.
well as psychotherapy,
Right.
because the only mental health professional here who works with your mind is a psychotherapist or counselor. Yeah. And that is the hard work, actually, you know, of looking into your mind and changing the way you think about things. So, together with medication actually puts you, properly prescribed medication actually puts you in the right frame of mind for psychotherapy. That's how I see it. That's how both of them work together.
Nice. Thank you, Shyla. Thank you, Vanessa, for the question. You won't believe me, Shyla. It's already 1 hour of having Kopi with Vance. Are you drinking
Yes,
coffee at the
that was
moment?
very, very fast. I know
Yeah.
caffeine in the middle of the night will make me
Yeah. Oh, you won't?
sleepless.
Do you take it or you don't?
No, I don't. I'm
You don't
drinking
at all.
water.
I
It's
see.
so
Okay.
hot here in Singapore.
Tell me about it. Back in Texas, what is the temperature like?
Oh, it's just as hot, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
Uh,
without the humidity.
that's right.
Hmm.
Shala, thank you so much.
Hmm.
It just feel like I just started this just 5 minutes of this podcast, but it just ran over more than 1 hour right now, and a lot of great points that we talked about, and I'm sure there's even more points that we want to share, but due to time constraint, then we got to cut it short. But
Yes.
I'm really grateful and really appreciate you joining us for the second time at Kopi events. Just that you're not drinking coffee, you're drinking water.
Thank you, Vance, for having me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And our podcast will be moved to Spotify within the next 48 hours. So, viewers out there, if you're watching this right now, please give us a thumbs up if you think that me and Shyla has done a great job, or if you think that we are doing a good job. Please do share so that more people can, get all this information in Spotify as well in the MRT or train or even in the bus. or you can just listen it up, right? Thank you so much. Thank you so much, viewers, especially all the viewers who are just listening. And I know some of the viewers have certain questions, but probably they don't want to ask. That's perfectly fine. If you do have a certain question that you want to ask Shyla, you can always send it to us, and then I will forward it to her. Shala, also, if viewers want to approach you, which platform they can do? You do want to share that as well?
Um, I think you can give them my email address.
Okay, sure.
The Therapy Rocks email address.
Right, I'll
That
do
would be
that.
great because I prefer getting an email because it's
Okay,
more detailed and yes. Yep. And the fact that I'm going to go back to the US shouldn't make a
okay,
difference. I mean,
right,
I'm an online therapist actually. Most of my
okay,
work is still online.
right.
I,
So
and I'm
viewers out
very
there,
clued. I'm very clued in on what's going on in Singapore
okay.
because I have family here and friends here.
Yeah.
Yes.
For viewers out there, so do take note that it is PNC, all right. So Shyla will contact you, via email. So do drop us a message, and then I can forward that to her as well. Thank you, Shyla. Is there anything else you want to say before we say adios, amigos?
um, I guess just hold your children dear and near, and keep the channel open, keep the relationship intact, as much as you can, and forget about the stigma. It's not worth considering or looking at, really. And so what if the world thinks this way about you? Stop shaming the process of therapy, all right? And be an advocate for it. Talk to other parents and other people, about how good therapy is. It really rocks. It's awesome.
Thank you, Shyla. I mean, if time permits, we'll definitely meet for that coffee. Enough of virtual for the second time, but I know you have a very tight schedule with your online therapy sessions as well as your, things that you need to settle in Singapore as well, and the same time enjoying your
Yes.
good food. But if there's an opportunity, we will definitely will catch Kopi or
Okay.
coffee, whatever we want to call it. Thank you,
Yes.
Shaila. Thank you so much. We will
Thank
stay in touch.
you. Yes.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So that's Shaila, and it was a great session with over the past 1 hour, I gotta say. I really enjoyed this session with Shyla. Great podcast, and this is our new podcast that will be pushed to Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook as well. So please do join us. I think the month of May is just purely fully on mental health, and we had great speakers on board with us. We got Yana, we got Dr. Ravi, we got Shyla, and a very good friend of mine, Dr. Arinda Singh, who talked about mental health as well. I mean, it's a great month of May, but we are coming back on June on a different set of topics on health. Right now, I'm just getting a message. Who's sending me a message right now? Coffee with the viewers? Why not? All right. Anything with coffee, I'm always there. Why not? Udaya? Thank you so much for your constant support and your sharing as well. Thank you, viewers. Um, a great fruitful month of May. Thanking every one of you, thanking every viewers who watching this. Please do share and like. On the comment section, I also have stated. I have placed it a few numbers from the mental health organizations as well, helpline. If anyone need help, please contact them. If you want to get touch with Shyla, drop me a message and I will forward your email to her so that she can contact you. And then if you do need help, and stay safe, stay happy, be full of energy, and I'll catch you on the next show of Kopi with Vance. Till then, adios, ami goes.